Or wherever you are in the world, good morning from Singapore. So I work for a FTSE 100 company out in Singapore working with private clients, and essentially I help with advisory and structuring, mainly working with expatriates out here, working with people from Commonwealth jurisdictions such as Australia, South Africa, the UK, New Zealand, and sometimes a few Canadians here and there. So essentially the focus of my work is helping people understand what they have, where it is, what are the implications of that, and how do we make things better and simplify things.
Michael, when you think about that hyper personalization, you help expats from around the world in Singapore. Like, surely everybody's individual, but how do you do that when you think about your customers in the digital world?
So, I mean, look, given the last year and the situation we've all been in and how we interface with clients has completely changed, we've gone completely virtual. Now, how do you keep things personalized while you're still sitting behind your computer and in your home and not even in the same room as the person now? Is you truly have to act with a level of trust and empathy with your clients. Personalization is one element, and getting to know your clientele is how you handle that, in my opinion. And then also, all your correspondence with them has to be personalized, and you have to remember the small details. Don't forget the small details. But from an institution, what matters most from a client's point of view when they look at the institution is transparency. No longer do people have time or care to look through documents that are stacked this high with fine print. Get rid of that. Make it simple. Have a benefit illustration that is transparent, that people can read it in 2 minutes and understand it. They want transparency. From an advisor, second to personalization, what they want is someone who's going to take responsibility. When the markets are down, don't put your head in the sand. Phone your client, explain why, and be there. Help them do your job. Your job is to advise, and it's not to sell a product. So one of the key differentiators and one of the reasons people seem to be dealing with me much more is they're tired of dealing with private banks that are completely transactional. The transactional service of calling you in every time there's a flavor of the month product, people are sick of it now in this new generation. We have access to information and we want transparency. So people are coming to us because I offer that, and I take responsibility when markets are going down, and you'll hear from me the same amount when markets are going up or if they're going down. So I hope that answers the question.
Michael, clearly, again, you're on this call, you help clients, you're not standing still, but what strategies are you using?
So, look, my job is not a simple one. I think that if you're successful in actually being able to work with clients, you have to be able to do multiple things. You have to understand markets, you have to understand taxes, then you also have to understand marketing and how to position yourself, PR, client relations. So I actually, depending on strategy, I break it up into client acquisition strategies, client servicing strategies, and client appreciation strategies. So essentially, if I'm doing client acquisition, how I do that is I have partnerships with different organizations, chambers of commerces, for example, and we will provide value through education, be it financial literacy, be it economic literacy, or a lifestyle event. So if, for example, my community here, I'm a part of the South African Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. And this evening, we are hosting a webinar discussion with Bryan Habana and David Pocock. Wow. Bryan Habana is the greatest try-scoring South African rugby player of all time. And David Pocock is a great Australian rugby player. So essentially, that's a lifestyle event. And what I've done, as I've said to 8 of my favorite clients who've really done great things for me, they've given me testimonies, they've referred me new clients. I said to them, here is a free ticket to an event that you will enjoy. Thank you so much for your support. Now that falls under client acquisition. The education pieces, last week I did a webinar about essentials of estate planning for South Africans living abroad. What is estate plan? What is a will? What is a nomination of temporary guardianship? What is a lasting power of attorney? What does that mean if you live in a foreign country? How does that apply to your situation? So you're giving value. You're not asking people for a meeting. You're not asking them for their money. You're educating them for free. You're giving them something for nothing. And people are more likely than happy to sit down with you to discuss their affairs, or to just simply get to know you as a person because you've been kind enough to do something like that. So under those two strategies, that's my kind of client acquisition, is give something for nothing, education first. Client appreciation, when people are good to you, be good to them. And then third of all, client servicing. Essentially, whenever a client comes on board with me in their first year, they will see me 4 times. They'll have 4 reviews every 3 months, not necessarily because the markets are going to do phenomenally well in the next 3 months, just so they understand the process of working with me. They see, all right, the indexes of the markets have done this, your portfolio has done this. What is the correlation? What is the view going forward? Being proactive with them and showing them that there's a hands-on approach to how we're handling their money. So in terms of strategy, I could go on, but those are my 3 areas.
But I think it's, and if I may say, these are classic life, old school skills, help the customer but you're doing it in the digital way now. Like before, none of us would have thought to do a lifestyle event on a webinar. We just wouldn't have done it, right? And I think sometimes the whole digital stuff, of course you need SEO and all the new ways of doing marketing. But I think sometimes what's lost is old skills, good sales, human skills in wealth that can be transferred digital. Look, I'm sure you'd rather be in a room with Brian Habana rather than on a webinar. I know that, and I'm sure the other people would. But I think, sometimes digital doesn't have to be overly amazing and new and different. I still think too many people, to April's point, oh, it's one and done. I launched a digital campaign, I'm done. No, it's like every day. I mean, even what we're doing here, creating content that people can see to drive, because wealth, I mean, particularly for you, Michael, wealth is very complex. You're doing estate planning and, you can do a lot from that side. Yeah,
absolutely. And look, I do think, yes, you need to take the old school skills. If you were good at this job in the 1980s, you could be good at this job today if you're willing to learn and if you're willing to adapt. I think there's a lot of people who have a big enough book of clients, perhaps, that they just say, look, people like me enough. I'm just going to sit back for this year and kind of, they've been with me for 8 years, 10 years. I don't really have to be that proactive in my approach. If you're going to do that, you will lose business. And in the next 3 to 5 years, your clients are going to see that all their friends have got better service and they will probably leave you. So I think being proactive is probably the number one key to any strategy here, rather than sitting back and going, people like me, it's enough.
And Michael, again, company wealth can be painful, right? It can be really hard to do it right. And, if it could be a luxury to do wealth, that would be pretty amazing. So what are those, Michael, you've talked about some of the strategies, but some of the solutions you've been thinking about as you obviously kind of become more of that digital financial advisor?
So I like what April said, because I actually have some clients that work for luxury brands, and they like working with me because they kind of have a great client experience, because I create something for them. It's not only just personalized, but it's fun. So I have a client, for example, who works for Remy Cointreau, and sometimes he we'll just get together for cognac, some of his alcohol, and he explains his world to me. And I go, geez, I really don't understand this. And he's like, that's how I feel when I deal with other people who do your job. And I was like, and that's when it clicked. And I was like, okay, I understand now why you want to work with me. But in terms of solution, so I think strategy and solution is completely different, right? Solution is what we're going to put in place in order to, increase productivity or to increase client experience, etc. But what I found is you need to become as easy to deal with as possible. People do not have time to work through their financial affairs, right? That's why most of the time they rather keep their money under the bed. So what you need to do is you need to be as easy to deal with as possible. How do you do that? Be accessible. So my first thing in accessibility is it's so irritating going back and forth trying to firm up a meeting with someone. Five emails about what time and place and where we're meeting is I don't have time for that. I'm sorry. And no one else does. So I use a little app that builds straight into my Outlook. It's called Calendly. And Calendly is brilliant. All you have to do is say, here's my link for this sort of meeting. Click here to schedule a time that's more convenient for you or most convenient for you. Click it. Next thing, I have an email in my diary telling me that I have a meeting with so-and-so at this time. Brilliant. Easy to deal with. All my clients, I've sent them an email that has all of my links for various kinds of meetings with me, so I know what to prepare. It's part of the kind of like onboarding thing, right? So they must be able to access me. At any time they open that, they can book a meeting with me. I'm there. So that's accessibility. Second of all, in the onboarding of clients, people do not have time to sign away their life through application forms and then deal with a courier back and forth, and then they miss a spot and you're not there to help them, right? Brilliant application called DocuSign is a digital verifications encrypted safe platform for your documents to go on that is recognized by financial institutions. All I do is I have a meeting with the client like this, with the documentation on screen. I explain it to them and make sure they're understanding of all the key details. And I say, look, all that's going to happen now is I'm going to click start and it's going to show me where to sign. I'm going to click, 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 and it's done in less than a minute. When I'm done, it's in your inbox and you just do exactly the same thing. All of a sudden, clients, they're happy with everything. They understand. I've explained it. I've been transparent. They receive this email. They input their password, and they feel safe. It's encrypted. They open it. They click. It's simple. I receive it back. It's processed, and the next week their account is open. So I think accessibility and being as easy to deal with as possible are the key areas in being a digital in this digital environment. And those are the solutions that I use to do that.
It's been interesting to see the different kind of ways each of you look at that.
Thank you.
You know, it's clear that you are passionate about both financial advice and digital. So I think you said if you were in the 80s, so I wasn't a financial advisor in the 90s. I'm still working in wealth today. What advice, what's your summary for digital wealth? You've been thinking about it a lot. As you think about this new world, how would you kind of summarize that?
Sure. Not to sound like a broken record, but I'm just going to highlight 4 points that we've kind of spoken about already. Is just simple. Be as easy to deal with as possible. Don't become a headache. As you said, it's been a nightmare dealing with wealth in the past. It's not a good Friday night out. So be as easy to deal with as possible. Second of all, be accessible. When clients need to speak to you or want to speak to you, be there. Be there proactively as well. Third of all is be accountable. When people want someone who's going to put their hand up and explain what's going on to them and hold their hand, right? So be accountable. And then fourth of all, be resilient in this new digital era, because you're going to try things that aren't going to work. I've done lots of things that have flopped like pancakes and it's been awful. But I've bounced back and I've tried something new and I've learned from it. So just be absolutely resilient, because in this industry, it rewards people who are persistent and resilient. You don't have to be the best person in the sun, under the sun, but just don't give up.
I love that phrase. I love that. I use this word relentless, resilient. I think it's the same type of idea.